Hello, welcome to the stream. I am your host, as always, Justin. Welcome to another exciting Biohack Chat. I think today is going to be a fun one. We're going to be once again hanging out with my good friend, Gabriel Licina. He's just dealing with something really quick, so he'll be on in just a few minutes. And so for the meantime, we're just going to kind of chat. As you can see, the theme for the stream is we're going to be talking about making sci-fi ideas real. And so we've already got a couple pulled up and ready to go. But if you've got others, of course, you can leave them in the comments and we'll try and address as many of them as we can. Since we're just waiting for Gabe, I'm going to take this time to do a couple little updates and just talk about some things really quickly. First things first, you'll see the donation bar thingamadoo here. As I mentioned in the last stream, it's about time that I got a new editing computer. Right now I'm using a really old laptop, so I would say 70% of my editing time is waiting on the stupid thing to render. So we're going to be fundraising bit by bit and just, getting the components one at a time, because I'm hoping to build a good enough computer that it'll last me a good long time. So, good components. I want it to last like 5-10 years, ideally. So yeah, that's if you feel like donating, you want to help out, that's what your donations are going to be going to today. In other news, this is a little sample, a little sneak peek of something that I'm tinkering with. Actually, I've been technically messing with this for a long time, but this is one of those. As always, the solution was figured out by Ben from Applied Science. So this is, if you can see that, you see how it's kind of rainbowy and it's got a nice little pattern on it. I'm working on removing the backing from embossed holograms so that I can actually make casts of them, because I wanted to do hologram chocolate for a while, and that'll be fun. But I've also got some other exciting plans for this. So step one was seeing if I can get it off, and so far I think I've actually managed to do it, because Ben's method is fantastic, because he is a genius. Now, without further ado, my good friend Gabe has returned, so it's time to bring him onto the show and get him in. So his sound is on, and that is ready to go.
Oh, my sound is on.
Your sound is on.
Hello. Hi, how's it going?
Meet Gabe. It's
Yeah.
good. It is, the world's on fire, so it's what is it, a Tuesday?
It is a Tuesday, and I'm enjoying this balmy heat of everything burning to the ground. I'm sorry, are we supposed to be like really nice and make people feel good? Because wow, I'm just not ready for that.
Nope. I've just got my trusty marshmallow stick and some homemade marshmallows and just, watch it burn.
Did I tell you my mom made marshmallows?
You did. You've told me multiple times and I'm still jealous.
Yes, but we made s'mores because someone came to visit us and they made graham cracker chocolate chip cookies, and then we used my mom's homemade marshmallows to make s'more cookie sandwiches.
This is so fucking good.
I mean, this is important, okay? I know that everybody wants to talk about science, but let's talk about the real things here. Graham cracker, chocolate chip, homemade marshmallow cookie sandwiches.
That
Yeah.
sounds pretty fucking good. So I was just testing a recipe for a new episode of the Taste Emporium, and it was very good. But it was so rich that I have absolutely no desire to make it again on camera for a little bit. Like, I need to, wait before I do it again on camera, just because it's so rich. I can't will myself to eat it again. 1, real great. 3, I wanted to die.
Were you around for when we made the koji patties?
No, you told me about them, and I have a bag of koji because I've been meaning to try them. I just never got around to it.
Yeah.
So do you want to just give people the 2-second version of what a koji patty is, and then we'll get into the science?
Oh, you know what? We'll just do it in the next time we talk.
Fair. Okay.
We got stuff to talk about.
Just
Things
quickly though. On the suggestion of a chef, I'm now following one of the lead guys from Noma on Instagram. And so every now and again, I'm like,
oh yeah.
I'm like, who is this? I'm like, oh my god, it's the Noma guy.
Yeah.
I forgot how much I like fangirl over like professional chefs. Anyway.
Oh, I found another thing that we're going to need to talk about too.
Okay. Was ist das?
We're getting there. I already grabbed the link. We're cool. Yeah.
Cool.
So,
Very cool.
so the topic of the day is sci-fi concepts that could be made real.
Yes.
And a lot of these happen because, because I read way more science fiction than I read journal papers, which is saying something because I read a lot of journal papers. And I'm going to just back them up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so this means that, there's a lot of stuff where you're kind of engaging in this concept of suspension of disbelief. And we actually have a friend whose job it is to talk with television stations or studios and directors and writers for TV shows and be like, okay, look, there's a lot of nerds out there and they're going to see this thing and they're going to be like, that's freaking bullshit.
Yep.
And so one of the reasons that the quality of sci-fi has increased on average, the bell curve has gotten bigger.
Oh man, I have
I'm not saying it's all good.
Yeah, dude, I have such a hard suspension of disbelief threshold. Like as soon as it I'm just like, I'm out. I'm fucking like it either has to be goofy enough to like offset it, so then I can be like, whatever, it's Rick and Morty or whatever. But like, if you're trying to do the like realistic sci-fi, like you better fucking get it right, or I'm just gonna tap out. Like
right. So, so sometimes though, I'm like, wow, I'm just gonna start picking ideas out of these books that I'm reading. And I like a lot of biopunk and solar punk kind of books. I don't think anyone who's ever listened to me in this little live stream thing would be surprised by that. And then I'm like, I wonder if somebody's actually done a paper on that. And so now this is where I'm going to throw in the thing that I just thought of to kind of lead into all of this. So I was reading a book, and this guy had a helmet made out of abalone shell. It was like synthetic abalone shell, mother of pearl.
You've told me about
synthetic.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's because it's the silk. Synthetic mother of pearl, and mother of pearl is actually really freakishly hard. And so if you had a motorcycle helmet made out of mother of pearl, your skull is safe. And I'm like, okay, I mean, how hard is it to actually make synthetic mother of pearl? Turns out, please look in the comments, bing, they figured out how to do this thing. There's a nature paper. Have a paper, people. And so, and so there's this, and so that word, none of us actually know how to say it because we've never heard it said out loud. So we're going to just call it nakra or nakre. If anybody knows how to use accents to make me know whether I'm supposed to. Nakri. See, I don't know.
I have no idea. Wait. We have Google. Let's figure this out.
Okay.
Nakri? I think is the Nacker? Yeah, mother. Wait. What's
Naker?
Oh, how is it said?
That I don't know if that's how you pronounce that. It's Google thinks Naker.
Naker. Okay, cool.
Which sounds bad.
So those abalones, they all get Naker.
Let's see if Wiki knows how to print. No, it doesn't. Okay, wait. I want to see if.
No, I think this is right.
Naker.
It's called Naker. Naker. Yeah. Wikipedia also says Naker.
Okay, Naker it is. And here, I'm going to pull up some pictures of it so people know what we're talking about.
Okay. So it turns out that you can make this artificially by basically creating, and so if anybody wants to follow along and open up the paper, that means you, Justin.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'd have to pull it up from the comments.
It's this thing again.
But I'll just find it.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. I want to say Nacre as well.
Yeah, okay, I found it. It's this thing. Yeah.
It's this paper.
I've read this paper. It's cool as hell.
Yeah, and so they do sheets of.
Oh, it's a nature paper, right? Okay, well.
It's a nature.
Which means we get to. I was about to say I need like a Sci-Hub bell.
Yeah.
Ding!
How do you
Sci-Hub
sigh out?
time!
And so it's alternating sheets of what they use is cellulose, um, silk, and of course our favorite material, chitosan.
Yeah, okay,
And
here's the thing.
it's actually really freaking amazing. And so this kind of goes off on this type of thing that we end up dealing with, where there are um, these concepts, and some of these concepts sound totally outlandish, and some of these concepts are actually really cool, and people have been doing research on them for a long time. What do you mean? Yeah, it's expensive.
I mean, the whole point of this is that you could take something that was expensive and make it not expensive, and also make it in whatever size you want. I've got the diagram pulled up here. So basically, the way this works is you make a slurry of chitosan, and then you basically cast it into sheets and dry it, and then you acetylate it. So let me pull up chitosan because this is important.
No, keep this. Everybody's gonna keep following this. You just talk about it.
Well, no, just so I can just show the difference between chitin and chitosan.
Right, because it's a functionalized chitin.
Okay, yeah, so
this
is chitin. It's a long chain of sugars, and you can see that it's got this amine group hanging off of it, or not an amine, sorry, acetyl group hanging off of it. That's connected via an amine bond. Chitosan is what happens when you knock most of those acetyl groups off. So chitosan is relatively soluble in water-ish. I mean, you got to acidify it, but it's soluble. It's soluble in vinegar.
4 to 8%. Yeah.
It's soluble in
acetic
vinegar.
acid.
It is soluble. Yeah. Period. It's not like you can dissolve it, whereas chitin you can't. So what these guys did was they first made chitosan, so it's soluble. They cast it into sheets, and then they reacetylated it. So they put the acetyl groups back on, so they made it so it won't be able to be dissolved again. And then they mineralize it by soaking it in calcium solution with bicarbonate ions, which will make calcium carbonate. So you end up with this basically it's literally making shell in reverse, basically. So you've got your chitosan, then you soak it and you mineralize it, and then once it's mineralized, they hot press it, and then backfill it with dissolved silk proteins. That's what the silk fibroin is. So you can actually start with a silk cocoon type thing, and dissolve it in a very weird solvent, and then infuse it into this nacre, and it actually becomes the real thing. And so here's a little piece of it, and you can see the little layers, but you can see that it looks like mother of pearl. It actually has that opalescence to it, and apparently its properties are basically almost exactly like the real thing, which is really, really cool. So once you can make little pieces like this, if you could make plates, that could be really neat, because I mean, depending on which silk you choose, you can also which chitosan you choose, because chitosan is an umbrella term. It's anything that is that sort of structure is chitosan, but it comes in different molecular weights. So the individual sugar chains can be different lengths, and the longer it is, typically the stronger it is. So if you're using really high molecular weight chitosan, and say maybe silk rather than silk from a silkworm, if you were using silk from a spider, you could make ridiculously strong minerally plates, which could be really, really interesting.
Now, this is actually going to affect your Young's modulus, in as much as that it's going to have a higher strength in a certain direction, but it's also going to affect its ability to torque and or how it reacts when it shatters, because this is always the trade-off in any type of material, where you have, you can take 2 human femurs. I only have 2. I definitely don't have more. And you can sink them into concrete so that they're stable, And then you can take a VW bug and you can put them on top of that. They can support that much weight. But if you twist them, they will just explode.
Yeah, they break
And so
really
this
easy.
is why spiral fractures are such a common and terrible thing in human bones.
Yes. And so what's neat with this nacre thing is that, because you've got that layering, and also because the layers will add strength in one direction, but the silk is really interesting because it's got crystalline domains where that's where the strength comes from, but it also has highly elastic domains. So you also get like this weird stretchiness to a very tough material, which is not something you would normally get from hard materials. Hard materials tend to be very hard, but also very brittle, whereas hard biological materials can, depending on how they grow, can also have a little bit of give to them, because even if they crack on like a small scale, there's often layering, and there's often sort of like more elastic proteins in the actual material matrix that gives it a little bit more give. So it's not going to just go like crunch the way that like a spiral fracture on a bone would. It like a layer or two might break, but the whole rest of it will like stay intact. I think of it more like tempered.
It's redundancy.
It's like multi-layered tempered glass, like that you get on like a car windshield, where it's multiple layers of glass held together with an adhesive, so that if one layer breaks, that adhesive and the other glass behind it holds everything together, so it doesn't just like spray shards of glass
explode
at you.
into your face.
Yeah.
So
nacre.
So
very cool.
And this is one of the really cool things about biomaterials, in as much as that they have this ability to have redundant systems and a certain type of flexibility that we are only still starting to learn in our chemical engineering world. And so I'm going to try to segue into our next thing, which is because so then I was just kind of noodling around. This was a different time, and I'm noodling around, and I'm thinking about interface surfaces.
Just quickly. So on this topic of bio-inspired materials, our good friend, the mantis shrimp, which is known for being able to punch at the speed or with the same force as a .22 caliber bullet. Its little like bowling ball hands, it's basically just keratin. It's the same stuff that like skin is made out of, but it's grown in this really weird spiral, so that even if one layer breaks, it can't transfer a fracture to the lower levels. It's really, really interesting material, and so now they're starting to make like bulletproof materials inspired by this pattern and this design, and you end up with these ridiculously tough materials. And basically all they're doing is they're just taking normal materials, and as they layer it, they essentially add a twist. So you'd offset one layer by a little bit, then you offset the next layer by a little bit, and your whole sandwich ends up way stronger because it distributes the force better. And this is one of the many ways that nature kind of almost always has us beat. Like, yeah, we can take this and learn from it, but like, this thing can punch so hard that light comes out. Like, it's just such a weird creature. I love it so much. Anyway, so that's that. So you had another thing you wanted to say?
Yeah. So this all has to do with like structure, right? And so a lot of you are using keyboards and or phones to watch right now, and you actually have a really restricted amount of ways that we interact with our technology. So like, here's a phone, and it's like you tap, you swipe, maybe you smoosh your thumb on it, and then we've got like a calculator, and you smush buttons. It's always poke, 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 usually like this, right? And then you've got your keyboard, and we all know that it's a very restricted movement, in as much as that we get carpal tunnel syndrome.
Also, it was designed to be restrictive.
Right. Yeah, that's a whole different thing. So the human hand is really great at holding things in different ways. Like, it's one of the things that makes us pretty cool. It's actually like way better than our intelligence is our hands.
Yeah, thumbs.
Especially this.
Yeah, thumbs and ability to run things to death is basically what makes us humans. We like to pretend it's tool use. It's not. It's thumbs and ability to run things to death.
Yeah, and so the fact that we interact with our technology in such a very limited way is one, both damaging to our body in as much as that we get ouchy pawpaws, and two, it really restricts our ability to interface with things. And so I was thinking about this, and then I was thinking about basically making an interface out of this plant that Justin is going to pull up.
Oh, okay, that's what you were building up to. Okay.
I'm going there. I'm building up to, I'm talking about interfaces. Like, where are you going with this? Talking about interfaces. We're going to go to interface time.
All right. So this is one of my favorite plants. I love this thing. So I've got a little GIF pulled up so you can see it.
Yeah.
So it's called Mimosa pudica, also known as the sensitive plant. And when you touch it, all the little leaves just like shy away, like they like curl up. It's sort of like a Venus flytrap, but it's not trying to eat anything. It's just trying to not get eaten. So it just kind of like hides. And it's not just the leaves, like the entire like branch, the entire like it's not the petiole, the bit where it connects to this, like the leaf connects to the stem, also wilts. So literally, like if you like knock the whole plant, you'll see like a thing go from a bush to just like, and it just like shrinks away into this tight little, like, it looks like a little leafless twiggy bush.
So this thing is, you can consider it an interface, and so there's a kit that you can get. What's the kit, Justin?
What Gabe is alluding to is the reason you can interface with this is when you poke the leaves, it actually releases this huge burst of calcium, which is detectable as an electrical flow. Because when you've got enough charged ions flowing, I mean that's electricity. That's literally what that is. So there's this really cool kit by a company called Backyard Brains, and I've actually got this kit. They built it so that you could stick it, so you could like cut off a cockroach leg, stick the two little electrodes from one end to the other, and when you poke the leg, it triggers the neurons, which are still alive because it's a fresh leg, and you can pick up the signals from the neurons firing in this cockroach leg. But if you actually stick the electrodes in the plant, when you boop the plant, you pick up a spike, which is really, really neat. And so yeah, it's called Backyard Brains. They're a really cool company. I'd highly recommend checking them out. They make all kinds of cool stuff. They've also got a 3-electrode kit, so you can measure propagation velocity. So you get a worm, and you stick 3 electrodes in it, and when you boop its butt, you can measure how quickly the electrical impulse flows down the length of the worm, which is really neat. But you can also, commandeer this kit for plants. It works with Venus flytraps too.
Right, and so then the concept is, okay, well, originally I wanted a giant keyboard made out of these plants where I could like stroke the leaves and send the signals back, because you can just take an Arduino or a Pi and run the signal through there and have everything, each plant be a button, right? And that would be pretty cool. But also
be very large. You need so many plants.
Hey, who doesn't want to just lay down in a giant pile of plants and be like, I'm typing? Like, that sounds way more fun than like sitting hunched over a desk in the dark. But that's just me. And so the problem with this is that the plants don't.
Refractory
the
time.
refresh rate.
Yeah,
the refresh rate on these plants is pretty low.
Yeah.
And if you keep booping them, they die.
Yeah. They
don't
like it.
We kind of. Yeah.
It's a defense mechanism, but they get very tired doing this. It's a lot of.
They get PTSD.
You also got to figure that like plants are basically this extremely delicate balance of generating and storing energy and moving. There's a lot of reasons that plants don't get up and walk around. Like, it's the same reason why you can't have like photosynthetic people.
Application? So is there a practical application? Yes. It would be super cool and super niche, but it would also be super cool. If you set up one of these kits and then attached it to a system that turned off on the lights in your house, you know how you have those fancy Internet of Things houses where when you walk into a room, the lights turn on automatically? This would be if you set the plant in the door jamb. You could walk into the room, gently brush the plant as you come in, and the plant signal would turn on the light bulb. The plant is not charging the light. Obviously, it's still connected to electricity. But the trigger through that backyard brains and then probably a little Arduino system to have it communicate with the light bulb would tell the light bulb to turn on. And so you could basically have the plant version of the clapper.
I mean, I love this. I actually,
yeah.
When Gabe first mentioned this idea, I immediately went out and bought seeds for this plant. I mean, I just love this plant. It was an excuse to buy it. But, so I'm gonna actually try this at some point. And admittedly, this is the most over-engineered bullshit ever. Like, for the amount of effort, like, you could totally get a photodiode just in the fucking door. Like, it'd take way less effort, but it's way less cool. Like, so just imagine if you had one of these on your, like, nightstand, for example, and you're like, okay, I want to go to bed, and you just, like, blow on your plant, and your lights just go out. Like, that just sounds really, it just sounds cute, honestly. Like, it doesn't...
And so, Andy Mouse is asking, why would we have the plant version of a Switch? Because plants are cool.
Yeah.
And because...
Why have a clapper?
Cool, and because they're also... Yeah. You know, why have a switch instead of, like, lighting a fire? I don't know.
Yeah, like, why? I mean, it's like, yeah, you could have a photo sensor, or you could have a plant. I mean, it's an excuse to have more plants, thing number one.
Also, a plant is technically a sensor, so, you know.
And it's just cool. And, I mean, like, how many times can you say that you're like... right? Like, how many times have you said, like, hey, can you go, just hit the plant? Like, it just sounds funny.
Just go... Yeah, just go boop the plant.
Yeah. It will get pretty awkward if, like, a fly lands on it. You're like, where'd my lights go?
That's true.
But, you know. I don't even know. I mean, you need a really big fly. I mean, you shouldn't have gigantic flies in your house. So, you know.
Yeah, it depends on where you live regionally.
Be hygienic.
Did you remember Florida? Have you forgotten Florida, Justin?
We don't talk about Florida.
Yeah.
Florida can sink for all I mean, it will. I find it fun. I don't get why people live in Florida. Like, the whole fucking thing's gonna be underwater. What is the point? Like, oh yeah, it's true. At night the plant does close its leaves too. So it's
which is perfect.
Which is perfect. It's an auto.
It's
a daylight sensor. It's great. Like. So, you know, but I've been seeing some, like, perimeter detection. I think that's hilarious. Like, if you just had, like, you know, a hedge, but it's these things. You know, somebody comes into your thing and sets the alarm off. Like, I mean, you could have, like, rows of it, right? So, you know, you've got some closer to the outside of the property, some a little closer, just, like, scattered around. And so, you know, if a squirrel sets one off, it, like, you know, raises one. You know, it's like a Venus flytrap where you got to hit the hairs twice to get it to fire, kind of thing.
This is a coding problem.
Yeah.
You know?
But, like, if it turned your camera on every time something booped a plant, like, that would be hilarious. Like...
The car alarm of plants.
That's great. I love this plant. This is gonna be hilarious. So I've got a bucket of these growing, and not only have they all sprouted, they're all starting to make their little, like, itty bitty, like, I forget the word for it, with the like little toothy leaves. So I think it's gonna be a little bit till they make their first proper set of leaves that'll actually close. But they're growing, so that's cool. While we were in Brazil, these things grew everywhere, just all the time. They're like, everyone in the United States is like, oh my gosh, these are so cool. We got to Brazil and there's like a field of them. We're like, so yeah, wait a second. And we were doing some stuff where we were taking what's the word for it? like you take two photos really physically spaced apart at the same time, so you get that stereoscopic view of clouds, so you make clouds look 3D, which is cool. But like the field was full of these things, so like as you're walking through the field, it's just like shrinking away from you. It was so cool.
Really cool.
It was really really neat. And so like the number of times I'd be like walking home with groceries and I just happen to see a bush of them and I'm just like sitting there poking them, like it's magical. Like they're such cool plants. Like and this is why, like, obviously using them as a light switch isn't practical. A fucking light switch is practical. But it's just cool. It's just like that like solar punk future that I desperately want.
Yeah, right? I want less plastic in my life and more plants.
Yeah.
So if I can take all of the plastic out and replace it with plants, boom. You've won me over.
Yep.
Somebody asked about head cheese.
I was about to say, I think it's time we talk about head cheese.
We're going to talk about head cheese. More sci-fi concepts that really should not be happening.
But you say that, but I want to make it past butter. It's the most expensive robot that I'll ever make, just so that I can get it to pass butter.
Yeah.
This is like legitimately my goal. I'm gonna like get it to pass butter.
No, we don't speak the name.
It'll be so good.
So,
anyway,
break it down for me. You made a video about it. In my lab.
I did, and that was really fun, and I'm really excited to do that again, just as soon as this fucking pandemic will fuck off and die.
Can we just start calling it a plague now?
It's a plague. I'm fine with that.
I feel like pandemic is too sterile.
I bought a plague.
I want to get my Victorian feels on.
Dude, I bought a plague doctor mask as soon as this started. I'm like, all right, my body is ready.
Right?
Okay, so let's talk about head cheese. So head cheese comes from a book series. This is the book. I don't know if you can see this.
Don't. I thought we said.
What?
We have. I mean, I know that we have to talk about it.
We're not going to talk about the end product. We're just going to talk about the fact that it happens in this book.
It happens in this book.
Okay, well, actually, this book is fantastic, albeit a little hard to read these days because it's quite dark. But so the first book is called Starfish. The second one's called Maelstrom. So in Starfish, they've got this concept called head cheese. And head cheese is basically this block. They describe it as about the size of a pizza box that is full of living human neurons. So it's basically just like, a quarter inch of thick of neurons over about yay big. And the idea is that they're using these things to replace humans in certain situations and also connect them to the internet for various filtering applications. But so this was kind of like, okay, well, could you actually make that? And the answer is yes, you absolutely can. So there's actually a whole field of researchers who are doing essentially this thing where they make these little.
Do you have one of the hard copy pieces? Hang on a second. I think I got one behind me. I'm coming back.
Oh my god!
You keep talking.
Okay. So we attempted to do this. So basically, the idea is you end up with this special petri dish that has dozens of little electrodes in it. And using the little electrodes, you can record what the neurons are doing and also interact with them a little bit. So for the recording, you're basically looking to see if they emit action potential. So you'll see like a literal spike on the graph. And so there's another picture here where you can see it. So you'll see like this actual spike in the recording. So by associating different areas on the array with different, let's go with choices, you can essentially measure when different areas are firing and then use that input to make other decisions. So various people have connected these two little robots, and they would feed in proximity data. So they built this little robot that had these ultrasonic sensors all the way around its perimeter. And so anytime the robot would get close to something, the sensor would start firing. And they would transmit that data back to the neuron array. And so that would sort of stimulate one little area on the array. And then they would listen and wait for the neurons to start firing. And depending on where they fired, it would change what the robot was doing. So either it would make it stop, it would turn it, it would make it drive in a different direction, that sort of thing. And so they were able to like drive a little robot around with a frickin' petri dish full of neurons, which is pretty frickin' rad. They've also done this where they've hooked up the inputs and outputs to a little flight simulator, and so they've like taught a dish of neurons how to fly a simulated plane. So of course, it's not going to have to control every button and dial, but like, it's, apply more rudder or more tilt or more yaw or whatever, just to keep the plane level was the majority. Like, they're not having it land. They're having it just like, don't, like, keep plane pointed in correct direction. And if anything happens to the plane that makes it not do that, it stimulates the neurons in a way that they really don't like. And then they react in a way that undoes that. So
it reads differently.
Yeah, it reads differently until you get the plane stable again, at which point it stops pissing the neurons off, and then they relax and they stop firing. So yeah, this is a thing. So we did this, and there's a video on my channel. I believe it's called Growing Human Neurons Connected to a Computer. Do you have the solid? Do you have the?
It's, you know what? It's so awkward to say this. It's totally on the kitchen table right now.
Oh well. So anyway, we did this, and we using a homemade machine, I managed to make a little electrode array on a microscope slide, and then we stuck a piece of cut falcon tube to it to make the little retainer ring. And then we filled it with human neurons, and we got them growing. And the original version had some issues, where we had things come off as we were autoclaving them. We had electrodes degrade. Although since making that video, I have been flooded with. I was contacted by the actual researcher who started this whole field, like the guy who invented this idea. Contacted me, was like, hey, that's a really nice video you made there. Have you seen this paper? Here's some suggestions. And I'm like, thank you. Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, and part of this comes back to the systemic issues in how journal papers are written.
I mean,
because
it's that, and also it's proprietary. Like there's companies that make these dishes now.
Trying to keep track of it, and so it's like, hey, I just want to see if I can duplicate this. This sounds really, really cool.
Right.
And then they don't talk about surface functionalization of the glass. They don't talk about their sputtering techniques. They don't talk about
the adhesive that they use to like stick the little ring on. So this is why it's been awesome that people have...
How is this whole thing put together? No, it just looks really cool.
So it's been awesome that people have reached out and wanted to help, because the input that they've given has just been incredibly valuable. And so one of the other people who reached out and was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen, how can I help, was Ben from Applied Science. And so here's I've pulled up some pictures that he sent me. So he is actually making the next round of base plates for this thing. So I'm going to stick the retainer ring on it and do the actual culturing, but he's making the actual base plates. And so this is one of the test pieces that he's done. This is a microscope slide coated in titanium. And you can see that he's labeled everything nicely because he's fantastic. So this is the 0.2 millimeter pitch. I'm going to see if I can zoom this in a little bit. Like, it is really, really clear. So he actually just posted a video on his channel talking about his progress on this front. And so what he did was he shrunk down a tax form to the size of a penny, and then coated it, like sputtered that onto a microscope slide, and you could read the whole form perfectly. So this was the test piece. The other image that he sent me This is from the design that he's been working on. So this is going to be the array. It's this is sort of the first iteration of it. It's going to be an 8x8 array, so like 8 electrodes wide and 8 electrodes tall. And the measurements he gave me was 2 millimeters. So if I'm understanding correctly, the entire array is going to be 2 millimeters wide, which is insane.
Yeah.
So that's going to be crazy resolution for the individual neurons. So we're gonna, the number of neurons we're going to need is super low. The resolution we should get is super high. And he's going to be helping to make the actual interface between the base plates and the electronics. And he might also be helping me with the preamplifiers as well. So he's going to be making these like little spring detent things to like touch onto the base plates, because obviously you can't, like, the wires are so unbelievably tiny that like you really need a very gentle way of interacting with them. And he's going to be doing a double coating at the same time, so like the apparatus that's going to make the thing isn't going to open whilst he's making the plates, which I think is really cool. So he's going to do a base layer of titanium, and then, excuse me, a top layer of gold, and he's going to do it all in one shot. It's going to be this amazing little 8x8 array, and then once that's done and the plague has fucked off, I'm going to take those base plates. I'm going to stick a new Falcon. So we're going to go with the Falcon tube method again, because that worked really well. But the suggestion that I got from people was, rather than using epoxy, to use silicone. This is what the grad students have been using, man. This is what they use.
I know, but we're talking
like PDMS.
Like, the problem that we ran into, in the way that I see it from a material science point of view, is that because we were trying to autoclave these things, even if it's on a micro level, everything is changing size due to pressure and heat and temperature.
But that's why silicone, it's stretchy. It can account for that. That was the whole point. It's not epoxy where it's crystalline and it fractures and then it pops off. It's silicone. It'll just bend.
Yeah. Okay. I see.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought it was like, that's really clever. Yeah. We definitely need to do that. So now I think we've addressed a lot of the issues that we had with the first one. The other one was some culture issues. We had people write in and say, you're using the right media. You need to add 1 or 2 more supplements. That was one of the things that we didn't get right.
Also, we needed to have less cells.
We also needed to have less cells. This is true. So for the next time, we're going to do less cells. We're going to make the changes to the base plates. We're going to have a much better interface for interacting with them. And for the actual culturing, we're going to be getting some extra supplements. So instead of just using the basal media, we're also going to get nerve growth factor, I think, was something that was suggested. Is like, you use the base supplement and just get the 1 nerve growth factor, and then that should be fine.
Oh, we're gonna smack it with NGF.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the head cheese.
Yeah, and that's freaking weird. That's definitely sci-fi stuff. Somebody has mentioned that your donate button might be broken, and why are we doing this if not to engage in late-stage capitalism, Justin?
Well, that's weird, because I got a donation that came through, so I don't know.
All right, cool. Well, I'm just like kind of.
No, I'm here. I'm gonna. If you've got something you want to talk about, then.
No, what's next on our list?
Carbon capture.
Right. And we were having this debate earlier. We were having a conversation. It was kind of a casual conversation, in as much as that Justin was mostly having a conversation with a burrito.
Hey man, dude's gonna.
But we were talking, yeah, and so we were talking about, like, what is our most ideal carbon capture method here, and it always comes back to algae. People talk about, like, the artificial leaves. It's like, okay, so you could build an artificial leaf, or you could just have a freaking leaf.
Actually, sorry, not to cut you off, just really quickly. There have actually been a couple of donations, so I just want to say thank you to the people who have really quick, because we were distracted when they came in. So Bundico, thank you very much, greatly appreciated, and A133M210, thank you as well. Also, I just checked, the donation link seems to be working, so if you guys want to do that, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah. Okay. So
Anyways,
why would anyone want to deal with artificial photosynthesis when we have? I mean, look at this. Look at this picture right here. So photosynthesis. It works pretty great.
Oh God.
By the way, shout out to Elliot Roth.
Yes.
You guys check out Spira. He does awesome.
I'm gonna pull up a thing.
I'm gonna pull up a thing.
I'm pulling up his. Oh Jesus. Spira. I'm pulling up
Spira.
Spira. Yeah, Spira Inc. They're good people. Highly.
Yeah. Yeah, they're actually good people, and they're doing really, really good, really cool stuff. Yeah,
I'm pulling up the page.
Link. Really good stuff using algae, and he's a brilliant dude about building bioreactors on the cheap. And he's gonna be like, "Why have you done this, Gabriel?" But you should totally reach out to Elliot and be like, "I want to learn how to build an algae reactor."
You should. Also, he makes this really amazing. He also made this amazing blue. I have some. I'll race
yes,
you
but
for
I
it.
can walk away from the camera.
That's true. I mean, yeah, but so can I. It's right. I'm in my kitchen. Here, I'm just gonna grab this tube of powder really quick. Oh no, wait. Did you get it? Okay, never mind. I'll let Gabe get it. Okay, so he has made this amazing blue, and I actually just used it in a Taste Emporium video. It's this ridiculous blue pigment, totally natural, and it comes from spirulina. I believe it's phycocobalamin. It's this so I've got some pictures of it pulled up. Gabe is brandishing it at the camera.
And I'm gonna get an Instagram model.
You're totally out of frame. At the moment you're just modeling your face. But so it is just crazy blue. Like the first time I saw it, I'm like, how the hell is this natural? Like it's craziness. So he builds these amazing algae bioreactors. Somebody kicked in a little bit. Thank you. It's okay, Pro Gaming. Thank you very much.
Also, totally okay to eat.
It is, and it tastes like Cheetos, which is weird.
Kind of cheesy.
Yeah, which is not what I was expecting from a thing that comes from green goo. But yeah, so he grows this like tanks and tanks and tanks, like huge pools of algae. And he's doing this in Indonesia, Peru, and a few others. So, it's supporting these small farmers, and they grow the algae for them, and then they extract this amazing blue pigment from it. And he's also working on, let's just, at the get-go, this is amazing. Like, it's so freaking cool that you can get these amazing pigments in a totally carbon negative way that's totally petroleum free. It's an antioxidant. It's good for you. Like, compare that to like the blue dyes that you use in like a Jolly Rancher, right? Like, compared to like blue number 2 or whatever, like this dye works just as well. It's a fantastic color and it's good for you instead of like it maybe causes cancer. Like, so I just think it's really cool. I love cooking with it. It's just, I only really use it for desserts because like blue food freaks people out, but like it's so cool.
Yeah, and the last time he came to visit, he brought a whole bunch, and I gave it to one of the local foodies, and they made blue waffles, blue chocolate, and blue ice cream, and It was awesome. And then I gave it to my mom. Yeah, that's right, my marshmallow making mom. And she dyed alpaca wool with it.
So we had a question. What about blueberry? Blueberries are not blue. They're purple. This is a common misconception. Blueberries are not blue. They're purple. If you've ever like squished a blueberry, you'll know that blue does not come out, whereas this is actually blue. Like it's blue all the way through. And so what Elliot's also
So
doing
blue.
is, now that he's got the blue going, he's also been looking at other algae species to make other dyes.
I feel like
Um,
go for it.
there's a red dye that is that he's starting to look at, and he's looking at other colors. Basically, are you doing blue eyeshadow?
Hey, we're on a YouTube channel. If I'm not putting on makeup while I'm talking, does anyone actually care? Alas.
So yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, so making all these really cool pigments, and also trying to do other extracts that are useful as precursors for making drugs and making stuff and things, and just basically trying to phase out the use of petroleum in favor of things that are carbon negative. Because with the spirulina, like
Not only that.
I
Okay, but
Okay.
the red. Got
I-
to talk about the red.
I did mention the red
No, but, I mean, so did you mention where the red came from?
algae.
No, the red. His red comes from algae. The red that we use in cosmetics comes from shrimp. And so people who are allergic to shellfish can't use blush.
What?
It causes skin irritation. Yeah,
I thought
that's the thing.
I thought the red we used comes from the root of a plant.
Nope.
What?
A lot of it comes
Do you know
from.
what the
a lot
name of
of
the
it.
compound is?
Do I know the name of anything?
No, that's my job.
Yeah, that's what you do. So maybe I'm going to try for more of an email. So yeah, so the red that we use in like red lipstick and red blush and red eyeliner or eyeshadow comes from shellfish. And people who have shellfish allergies actually are allergic to this, even though it's been processed, and so they have skin irritation. And this means that there's a whole, like, one, you can think of it from a marketing point of view, there's a whole demographic that is ready to be sold to. And then you also have just the fact that, hey, it would be great if people didn't, like, have their faces set on fire whenever they tried to put on makeup, because don't we all want to look pretty?
I mean, so I'm seeing
like,
carmine and eosin. I don't. Where's carmine?
Hey man, this is just what Sephora told me.
Okay, well, so carmine is from. I don't think it. Oh, it's not from shrimp. It's from bugs. It's from cochineal.
So the protein, so not shrimp. I am incorrect. But it's
yes.
still the protein that causes the allergy is still there.
So yeah, I think it's cochineal.
Yeah. So the point is that by being able to replace this from a different source, it allows people to be able to put on makeup better.
Yeah, so it's a cochineal allergy. That's the thing. So it's actually the same problem. If you're allergic, you'd have issues eating foods that are dyed red. So cochineal, just for those who are unfamiliar with where this comes from, is from crushed bugs. So it's these colonies of bugs that live on cacti, and so they grow these purposely infected cacti covered in these bugs.
I feel like I feel like this is too simplified in as much as that. So remember how we were talking about chitin versus chitosan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the reason that we have chitosan instead of chitin is that we don't know how to cross-link chitin, because chitin cross-linked in shrimp, insects, and mushrooms for some reason, is cross-linked by proteins. And so that's the thing that actually causes the issue. And so this is kind of a, we're getting into like a weird scaled out chemistry type of way of looking at this. So it's not specifically this bug per se, but
it's contaminating insect bits.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, you can chemically extract the dye, but as like you got to figure that the less work they've got to put in, the cheaper the material is going to be. So if you can just like blend the bugs and strain it, like that's probably what they'd use rather than like going through all the effort to chemically purify it and make it perfect. And so like there would be those contaminants left over which you could have an allergic reaction to. Whereas if you're doing this from oh crap, what's the name of the algae? Is it Heliospora? No, that's not right. It's red algae. Heliocystis? No, that's not right. Let's see if this gives me the thing. Fuck, the worst part is I just saw this on Journey to the Microcosms, and I am blanking on what this thing is called. Shit. I'm totally blank. Okay, whatever. It doesn't really matter. The point is, it comes from red algae. Red algae.
Now I have bruised-looking eyes. I'm starting to regret my choices.
Yeah, it does look like somebody punched you.
And this stuff doesn't come out. It works really well. Remember Biohack the Planet?
Yeah.
I had this stuff on my fingers for like...
Here we go. Hematococcus. That's what I was trying to fucking... I'm like, it's not helio, it's hematococcus. So okay, this is the thing that Elliot was telling me. So I was chatting with him about this. So this is the red algae. So if you got to figure if that blue pigment comes from spirulina, like look at this red pigment. Like look at how freaking vibrant this is. And it's astaxanthin. That's what the compound is. It's the same thing that's found in all sorts of vegetables and all sorts of things, but the algae just produce it at ridiculous volumes. So you can grow them in a tank rather than having to like wait for a whole plant life cycle to do its thing. Here's a really great image of different algae growing in different ponds. And so you can imagine that if you had all these ponds growing, I mean, just having them there is capturing carbon, which is cool. But also you can have all of your colors, all your different petroleum starting compounds just growing. And anything that you don't use from the algae that is like that you're not going to use. So like with the spirulina, right? Like you get the blue out, but then what do you do with all the rest of the spirulina? It's just carbon that's been ripped out of the atmosphere. You can use it as compost. You can use it as all sorts of different things. You can just bury it in a hole, and then it's permanently removed from the atmosphere. Like or you can, juice it for the oils, or you could do all kinds of other different things to it. And it's a way of getting the same things that we're used to without having to dig it out of the fucking ground. And to me, this is like the solar punk future that I want, really. Like, as Gabe mentioned, I mean, we're big solar punk fans. So really, like, because I mean, I'm over cyberpunk. Like, cyberpunk was neat until we started actually living in a cyberpunk dystopia, and it stopped being fun. Like,
yeah, it's fun to watch from a distance.
Right. Now I'm like, and so okay, so for those who aren't familiar with solarpunk, I'm gonna just pull up some images really quick, and credit to all the artists who made these; they're dope as hell. But solarpunk is basically all of the things that we like from cyberpunk. You've got your super futuristic tech, you've got your implants, you've got your augmentations, you've got all that shit. Except instead of like gritty, like dark, disgusting future, it's trying to reintegrate all of that amazing technology with nature. And so it's you get stuff like this where it's these living structures or these things that are coated in plants. It's also just a different color scheme, which I frankly appreciate. And instead of the like blacks and grays, it's like greens and blues and whites, which I really, really appreciate. It's just it feels more alive. It's this kind of thing where everything is covered in plants. Like there's no reason that we need brick on the outside of everything. Like all of our buildings could be covered in plant and then be doing that like dual purpose of we can live in it, but also it's capturing carbon and doing this thing. And like this is a totally viable technology.
And also this also has to do with microenvironments. Hey everybody in the United States, how are you dealing with the fact that we missed spring?
Yeah.
Has that been cool?
And also,
you guys been enjoying that?
Like
I know that we've been kind of not paying attention to that because of, everything else that's going on in the United States lately. But behind all of that is the fact that we didn't get spring. Spring was canceled this year.
Yeah, but 2020 is
that's
canceled.
really fucked up.
So here's a really great example of it's just a small change to the architecture of the building, but it allows for huge amounts of plant space. And what's really cool about this is, I mean, you can coat the buildings in paints that actually break down pollutants. So you got to imagine if you were coating all of the buildings in central downtown of your city with a titanium dioxide and a manganese dioxide based paint, like it would actually break down the pollutants back down to their components, so like nitrogen basically. So it would take all the like exhaust from cars, which realistically we should also be moving away from explosion engines, and it could break all the pollutants down. And if you're covering it in plants, it changes the way that even light interacts with these cities. So instead of these horrifying like heat islands where, if you're downtown in summer, like, you get fucking roasted. And the reason for this is you've essentially added all of this extra reflective surface area. So the heat just gets stuck. Like the wind can't blow through it properly and cool things down. It just hangs on to the heat and it just cooks. And then it radiates it back out very easily to the, chagrin of everyone around you. But if you're coating your building in plants, it changes the way the light interacts with it. So instead of it being highly reflective, the light is literally being absorbed. You're ending up with these much higher levels of oxygen and much lower levels of CO2. So that actually, there's all kinds of really great psychology papers where like people are just happier when their CO2 levels are lower. And the plants can also absorb benzenes and formaldehyde and all the other vapors that come off of the products that we enjoy. So the air would be cleaner, the heat would be lower, everyone would be healthier, and also it's plants. They could be food plants. Those could all be fruit trees. Like, you could just walk out onto your balcony and be like, oh, yep, I'd like a pear, or whatever. I mean, pears are mushy, but point being, like, you could have plants that are doing all this amazing stuff for you, rather than it just being yet another stupid fucking skyscraper.
Yeah. So I would just like to roll back to something that we were talking about. So the red pigment in shrimp is I'm so terrible with words. Please just look it up really fast. Astaxanthin? Yes, that's right. Astaxanthin.
Yeah, astaxanthin is from it's in everything.
And the thing is that it is actually used in cosmetics.
Yeah, astaxanthin. So why would you use it from shrimp? Astaxanthin is that's what the hematococcus makes.
Because shrimp shells are all over the place, dude. Thus, us talking about chitosan, jodoy.
Astaxanthin from shrimp byproducts. Holy shit. This is okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a super common thing. And so that's like, you could do it from other sources. This is the whole point that I was talking about why Spira is so cool. Because this is how we normally get this chemical, but it also causes people to have an allergic reaction.
Interesting. Because, I mean, it comes from red algae, it comes from all sorts of things.
Yeah, while the clever infographic gave you one chemical, the reality is shrimp exists.
Oh, yeah. So shrimp shells, extraction solvent, crude extract, purify, astaxanthin. There we go. It's 85% astaxanthin. It's that other 15% that fucks you.
I'm 85% astaxanthin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Very neat.
All right. Well, okay, but I just needed to hammer that home because there was a whole big confusion there, and I needed to like.
Okay, cool. Hey, no, I'm glad you found it.
Yeah, I found the thing. Let's go back to talking about solar punk because I'm liking that way more. Let's talk about my bright green future.
I do like solar punk. Solar punk is great. So actually, speaking of solar punk, there's so many. One of the things I love about solar punk is it really leans into the synthetic biology aspects of the theoretical future, which, I mean, we're both biologists, so I think we kind of have a bias towards this, but there's so much cool stuff that you can do with synthetic biology, especially like when you're not doing it to just be a dick. Like when you're not just like, let's make things resistant to herbicides. Like when you're actually using synthetic biology for the amazing tool that it could be.
Let's make things glow, Justin.
Hey, fuck you. I want like, hey, look, glowing is fine. Glowing inspires a generation, and also, goddammit, I want my fucking avatar forest.
I mean,
okay?
it worked for the 80s.
Yeah, right. And like, I would be fine if more things glowed. More things glowing is fine, especially now that we've got a really fancy ass system that works super well.
Yeah.
And so the glowing plants I see that as an inevitability. Like, there's already companies doing it, and their system is fantastic, and we're seeing if we can recreate it, but that's besides the point. But okay, so if we're talking about like solar punk future, this is something that I've been thinking about for a really, really long time. So there's this fantastic movie called Titan AE, and movie aside, they're on this alien planet at some point, and there's these trees there that called gas trees. I've always called them hydrogen trees because that's basically what they are. It's essentially a tree that is sort of floating a little bit, like it's anchored, but it's floating because it grows as these giant gas bladders full of hydrogen. And for those who are interested in electric vehicles or vehicles which are more environmentally friendly, one of the fuels which are an alternative to the usual, like if you want to continue using like the Kaboom engine, but don't want to use petroleum products because it releases CO2, if you run your thing on hydrogen, either through a fuel cell or just straight up burning it if you're a nutcase, you need hydrogen. But making hydrogen currently is very expensive and is actually, this is what I find very funny is they pitch making hydrogen as this, or using hydrogen as this like green technology, except most of the hydrogen that we get comes from catalytic reforming, where you're essentially taking methane and heating it until hydrogen comes out. And guess where you get methane from? A fucking hole. So really what the alternative being electrolysis, which is extremely energy intensive, which would be fine if we had more nuclear, but everybody's fucking weird about nuclear, so that doesn't happen. So in theory, synthetic biology could come to the rescue. If we can make hydrogen trees, and like this isn't something that's like maybe we could, like this is viable. Like there's all sorts of already existing biological systems which people have been able to transfer to different organisms that are very capable of literally just shitting out enormous amounts of hydrogen.
Boom, have a paper.
Thank you. So there's a paper in the comments for those who want to follow along.
Did it actually go? Why are you being weird?
It takes a second. There's a lag. The paper's there.
Right.
Anyway, I like the hydrogen trees because it keeps it in a nice, confined bubble, and so you could like tap it like. I mean, imagine like tapping a tree for maple syrup, except you're tapping it for hydrogen. Obviously, you'd have to be very, very careful, or it would go kaboom.
You're in Canada. Have you ever tapped a tree for maple syrup?
I have not personally installed the tap, but I've gone to there's like places you can go where you can like carry the buckets and like bring it over to the big pot where they're boiling it down. I've told this story before, but my professor in university, my plant. Okay, so let me tell you the short version of my professor in university. My professor, he taught the plant class, and his name was Root. Yeah, the plant professor's name was. It felt like taking.
I've got a friend who's a soil biologist.
Yeah, it's.
I got a friend who's a soil biologist. Her last name is Dirtling.
That's great. That's
awesome.
That's amazing.
She's super cool.
Yeah. Okay, so my professor's name was Root. And already he was the coolest professor I ever had. Like he would canoe to school. And then he would get in and he'd be wearing like short like sport shorts and like a sweater. He'd like kick his shoes off, sit on the podium and just talk about plants for an hour and a half. It was awesome.
Sounds legit.
It was my favorite class. He's the guy I got the term sessile animals to describe mushrooms from.
Yeah.
So like every time I
Yeah.
talk about mushrooms, I'm like, yeah, they're sessile animals. I got it from him. Anyway, so he takes 3 months out of the year that he gets off to go tend his maple trees. Like he's got a whole maple grove and he like fucks off to the forest to like tend his maple trees. And he brought in some of the maple syrup. And it was so
That's
good.
so cool.
He is such a cool person. I love him. He was so great. And then like he takes another 3 months off to fuck off to the desert to go study cacti. And then he spends the rest of the time like being a really dope professor. He's my favorite person. Like legitimately
I had an entomology professor that was like that. It's like he would just like dip out for 4 months to go do bug stuff in the middle of nowhere. He's like, yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, isn't that the dream?
It is.
Isn't that what we're all trying to get to?
Yeah.
Where we're like, we spend some time like providing for our livelihood, and then we also just fuck off and do whatever the heck we want. Yeah. So, I mean, that's great.
I'm seeing a lot of I am root in the comments.
Yeah.
And I love it. Okay, wow, you're getting hid.
Man.
But so yeah, so root is the bomb. He's legitimately like I hated the shit out of school. Like I hated the overwhelming majority of it. But there were two professors who made it tolerable, and he was one of them. The other one was my natural history professor, who was a bit weird. Okay, that's an understatement. He was real weird, but terrible teacher. Like when it comes to lecturing, he was absolute shite. But every Tuesday morning at like 6:30 in the morning, he would lead these nature walks where you'd meet up with him and a bunch of other students, and he would like take you on a tour through the greenery in the school, because the school was in a very green area. Like there was all the kinds of like forest and stuff right next to it. So he would like take you through, and this dude was like fucking Snow White. Like he would just like start making bird calls, and just birds would appear. Like,
Nice.
dude, on like an hour and a half walk, we found 40 different species of birds, more than half of which he called. Like,
That's cool.
It was amazing. This guy has written like 3 books on beavers. Like, he's like, he spent many years like, up to his
algae makeup. Come on.
Like he spent like many years like up to his nipples in river just so he could study beavers, and he's written like multiple books on them. He read so much.
I mean, that's how you do biology.
It is, and my school used to have a little natural history museum in the tunnel system, but they were gonna throw out everything and renovate it to turn it into like a fucking coffee shop or some shit. And so he saved the overwhelming majority of the collection and just moved it into his lab space, which is really just a storage room at this point because it's just full of specimens. But I got to visit his little lab because I was through the nature walks. I got talking with him, and he'd invited me to learn how to do the taxidermy of his the bird specimens. Although then the school cut his funding for that and was like, no, you just need to send out for professional. No more letting grad students do it. Which was bullshit. My school was very corrupt, but that's not the point. But so he saved all of these specimens, and I got to see the collection, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was hundreds of different species of birds and butterflies and skulls and bones and just so much cool shit. He had a whole freezer of dead birds, like that were waiting to be skinned, and it was just.
I mean, wait, this is not normal.
I mean, I hang out with so many biologists that I'm like, what? You don't have a freezer full of dead things you're waiting to skin? I've got this fantastic friend who she's an ecologist and does a lot of like she'll anytime she sees roadkill, she'll like collect it and then do all the preparation. So she's got the skulls, like she collects skulls. And so, she'll do all the processing of it, and she's got a really sizable collection. She drove a wolf head. Like so she found this wolf that was dying and had been shot by some hunter or something. And when it finally, she'd called in the local wildlife person, and the wolf ended up dying, but she saved the head, and she kept it in a cooler in her like that she ended up
Like
driving like across the country before, because she couldn't, like, she was working, she didn't have a place where she could process it, but like it's kind of a when the fuck are you gonna get a wolf head? So like, so she drove this wolf head like across 3 provinces in a cooler, like just until she could get to a friend's place where she could finally process it, and she was so proud of having this skull. It's so cool. It's like, I have so many friends like this. It's awesome. Like,
all right. So what is our next step for making our crazy solar punk future out of fiction that is not actually fiction? It's just research that nobody's talked about. What else we got on the list? Are we out? Have we run out of stuff?
I mean, we've run out of the things that we came up with. I'm gonna just like look through the comments really quick.
All right, people, let's go.
Yeah,
come on. What do you got?
Tell us about all of your solar punk ideas. Let's.
I know,
see
and
what
I'm
you
just
got.
I think I'm gonna do a little more under the eyes.
Okay, yeah. Gabe is gonna do his makeup, and we're gonna. Oh, so we got a question. How do you process a skull? So there's different ways to do it. A lot of it is just
beetles.
I prefer. You really look like somebody punched you. That is not a good color for you. Like you look like you got.
It's the lighting.
It's the lighting, and also it looks like somebody like hit you multiple times in the eyeball.
Hey, I'm.
So
I grew up in the '90s. This is acceptable.
But
just need to flare.
Yeah.
Or smoky breath.
So talking about processing skulls, there's the flesh-eating beetles. They're called Dermestid Beetles. Those are a fantastic choice.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is manual. Like, even with the Dermestids, you need to remove as much of the tissue as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of just do the final polish. Because you gotta leave enough meat that they can eat. But also, like, they'll get into all the nooks and crannies, which your tools really can't. The other way to do it, which is the way that she does it, is it's called maceration. You basically boil it until the meat comes off the bones.
See,
but
now this
that
is
can
a
damage
problem,
bones.
though. Yeah, this is a problem because the lipids in the meat end up soaking into the bone and weakening the bone, and so you have a less robust structure, and they're harder to deal with.
Yeah. Alternatively, you could just bury it, and that will. And I mean, you get the same effect, like the insects and stuff.
Then you get things that gnaw on it. Trust me, I just buried a raccoon, and that motherfucker just keeps coming back. So it's not worked out well because things want to eat dead things. That's a whole circle of life.
Really, the Dermestid Beetles are your best choice. I'm not going to pull up images of that because it's a little gnarly.
Come on.
But yeah, Dermestid Beetles are dope as hell. They smell like shit. Unsurprisingly, they're eating a corpse, but they're very cool. So one of the other highlights from my university time was actually my animals form and function class. And in the lab, it was mostly dissections. And every week, the lab coordinator would bring in a different live specimen for us to interact with. And so one week it was some Madagascar hissing cockroaches. For a couple of weeks, it was various kinds of snakes. And at one point, she had a tank with frickin' Dermestid Beetles in it. And it was awesome. There was like, a mouse head that was being
the sound
processed.
Of chewing.
Yeah.
All of the other methods for processing all have their own issues. If you bury it, you're going to get things chewing on it.
Yeah.
Unless you're like burying it in like a very highly specific area, and then you're still going to get your like little insect doms, because that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
If you boil it, you're going to get a softer bone. If you try to boil it and then dermest it and try to like skip a step, so really what you have to do is you have to like clean it down, and then you're going for the Dermestid Beetles, and
they usually bleach
it's a carcass. Yeah, it's a carcass. So make sure you have a separate room with good airflow.
Outside, ideally, like a shed.
Yeah.
This is like
a shed. Yeah.
This is a shed problem. Because otherwise, I want to be in that fucking room. I know of some people who built like a little tank with not a tank, but like like a little cabinet with a carbon filter that like evacuates the air outside, and it's still just vile. Like it's an outside thing. Okay, so we had some suggestions for Solar Punk Future. So let's see what we got. I'm seeing some like architectural or structural engineering with grafted trees, and so like there have been some people who've made like chairs and stuff out of trees. I'm not into it.
Okay, so I've got this one.
Okay,
Let me tell you what, I have thought a lot about this.
It's all you, bud.
So the current way that we interact with our materials is that our materials have to be dead. Yeah. We don't like things. Hi again, everyone in America. We don't like things that fight back. And so, hey, what?
No, it's
I'm
true.
I'm not going to ignore political reality here.
Okay.
So we don't like things that fight back. And so this is why we, in the lab, we sterilize everything. We have to. We just scorch the earth. And this is why other stuff seems to be happening right now as well. So we like our possessions to not move. And so the effect of having a living organism in your house, if you had like a houseplant or something like that, is that it is constantly growing and it requires attention. And it's also going to be maybe giving off spores or pollen, and it's going to have like gentle amounts of mold or something. Let's get some pictures of trees built into houses. And so what this means is that if you try to integrate these two things, your house is going to change over time, and it's going to change independently of your desires. And that is not how we build things.
Yeah. The
entirety of human construction is built around like, yes, so there's this. And that's fun and cool with that chair that this guy has made.
But it's also like bonsai in that if you stop caring for it, it rapidly becomes not a chair.
Right. And so this is more like this becomes a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
Where you're like, my whole life is about like grooming my house. And so this goes back to, I think, a previous conversation we had about why suburbia exists. And so suburbia exists because of an architectural movement called garden cities. And garden cities were... Can you pull up some garden cities for me?
Yep.
Garden cities was this architectural movement that started in 1901, roughly. And it was basically this concept. It was solar punk before solar punk. Back when industrialization was a thing in a super, super hardcore way. Yeah, look at that. Look at those circle designed cities. So pretty. And it was all about, so like all of the green lines and tree lawns. And you know, okay, so I'm in Indiana. We get this little thing called the tree lawn. It's like a little shitty ass strip of grass that's between the sidewalk and the road. That was supposed to be like 3 times as wide and have a microforest in it. So their original design, this concept from
this thing. It's this little, it's the weird bit between the sidewalk and the road.
Yeah, that's what a tree lawn.
That's mostly fucking grass.
Yeah.
I hate
well,
grass.
So there's a reason for this. We were trying to develop a way to integrate nature into cities, but we're also, and so part of Frank Lloyd Wright, part of his architectural style, and then Paolo Soleri, the guy who coined the term arcology.
How do you spell
this?
Oh God!
Just type in the word arcology.
Oh,
arcology.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to see your search history. No, don't do that.
Well, no, it came up. I put in Paolo Solari and some fucking leather coats came up.
Yeah, that's weird. So this whole concept, the whole concept of integration was being worked out. And they were trying to do this 120 years ago. They're like, hey, getting sucked into a giant steel and concrete machine is maybe not the best thing for us. And so they were trying to work on integrating nature into architecture. And it turns out that we are super skittish about apex predators. And so we kill apex predators because we're defensive of our territory. And then once you don't have any apex predators, then you have an overabundance of herbivores, and the herbivores are eating everything. And so you're trying to have your happy little lawn, deer and bunnies, and so you get rid of the deer and the bunnies, and then you have to maintain it yourself because the deer are basically lawnmowers.
Yeah,
like we made lawnmowers because we killed.
You can't get rid of the deer. That's the thing. Like everyone's like, the species are going extinct. Yeah, not the deer.
But we get rid of them in cities, and deer are lawnmowers. Yeah. And so you get rid of the deer, and all of a sudden now you have to prune things. The deer were already pruning for you, and so then you spend a lot of time maintaining this little micro forest in your yard, and that becomes tedious. And so you minimalize and you minimalize and you minimalize. And boom, you end up with suburbia. 1950s, it only took 50 years for this architectural movement to move from we want to do solar punk 120 years ago to 1950s America. So
that one.
Yeah, I took a whole class in university about this.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I'm seeing some comments on like, I hate the idea of flat, boring grass. Good. Like
Great.
Okay, so let me just have a quick little tirade here on why we have lawns. The reason we have lawns is because when people came over from Europe, they were used to the idea of these, manicured lawns of nobility in an area that rains all the fucking time. So then they tried to do lawns in America where not so much with the rain. So I mean,
we have rain.
Yeah.
The Pacific Northwest is full of rain.
Right. The Pacific Northwest is full of rain, but most of the rest of the country is a dust bowl. So to maintain these stupid fucking lawns, you're basically pissing away water on a useless ass plant.
I'll be back. Okay. I have algae in my eyes. I was too excited.
Okay. Well, for fuck's sake. But yeah, so the idea of lawns came from nobility in Europe, but when you try and transfer that idea to America and the Americas and all this kind of thing, you end up with having to fucking water it all the time, and also lawns are just a stupid waste of space. It's like you've got this area where you could be growing food, or you can be growing flowers, or you can be growing all this wonderful stuff, and we've decided to fill it with useless ass grass. I hate grass. Grass is the fucking worst. Like, I'm not about the like Agent Green life, but like if we could just like get rid of the grass, that would be lovely. There's so many better, and I mean, even if you just want ground cover, like you're not looking for the like flowers and trees and shit, like there's so many better ground cover options that just aren't grass. Clover is a great option because as it grows, it makes flowers, which bees like. So like, you still get your ground cover, it looks nicer, and you get flowers, and it smells nice. Whereas, like, grass is just useless. And, like, ugh. So, yeah, there's so many better options. Moss is nice. Moss is a great option as well. There's some succulent ground covers, which are really fun. Personally, I like nasturtiums, just like nasturtium lawn, because then you get the tiny little, okay, for anyone who doesn't... Okay, just anyone who doesn't know what a nasturtium is, these are nasturtiums. They've got, I'm gonna see if I can pull up a leaf. They've got like little Totoro leaves. They're so fucking cute. Look at that shit. It's a little Totoro leaf. It's so cute. So the I actually. So these are the nasturtiums that I have growing. They're called Orchid cream nasturtiums. They're stunning, absolutely stunning. And the coolest part is the flowers and the flowers and the leaves are edible. So you could use the leaves in salads, and the flowers taste spicy. They're like spicy flowers. So like, imagine, you got this like lovely bouquet of flowers.
Hang on.
That are spicy.
Hang on, I know. Okay, let's stop nerding out about flowers for a second and nerd out about how to have flowers.
Okay.
So somebody just said, so this is Jedi I'm going to say when. The worst thing about lawns is that there are probably city bylaws pertaining to the lawns. Let me tell you a story, friends. So I moved to Indiana, and I'm like smack dab in the Midwest, and I am in suburbia. And the very first thing that I did was I had to mow my lawn, and it sucked. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? Okay, sorry for my eyes. I got algae in them. I don't know how that happened.
Could it be that you're rubbing algae powder in your eyeball?
Well, I have learned an important lesson. Okay, this is how we learn.
This is how Gabe learns. This is how we learn. In case anyone was wondering,
yeah,
it's
this is how we learn.
He puts something on or in his face, and then he goes, "Huh, that was a bad idea."
So, the first thing that I did is I started. We took all the boxes from moving, and we broke them down, and we started killing all the grass in the backyard because I'm going to grow a food forest. I don't care where the fuck I'm living. We're growing food forest. And then I'm like, oh, what if I could turn the front yard into a giant wildflower field? But there is a city bylaw that is like, you can only have grass or weeds. And weed is such a stupid term in as much as that weed means a plant you don't want. So if I
like
want
grass?
The plant, yeah, right? So is it technically weeds?
There's only one weed. We call it grass.
Confusing. It gets really confusing. And so it turns out that you can go to the National Wildlife Foundation, and if you follow just a few simple rules, you can get your yard certified as a wildlife refuge. And so, in almost every state in the country, there is a precedent for this being a loophole. And so you can
for clarity, he's talking about America here. So yeah, anywhere in America, you're allowed to do this if you follow the rules most of the time.
Yeah. And so this means, like, right now, I have, like, I'm a tall guy, and I have knee-high grasses and wildflowers growing, and I've had code violation called on me twice, and they come over, and I'm like, look at my paperwork. Look at my flowers. And they're like, okay, all right, well, we'll probably see you in another month. And I'm like, have fun.
His neighbors keep calling the cops on him because he doesn't mow his wildlife sanctuary. I've been to Gabe's house. Gabe's house is magical. His backyard is.
I am a Totoro.
Oh, tell him about the. So I'm a big fan of what's called no-till gardening or no-till farming. So there's this idea that, especially back in the day, if you wanted to farm a piece of land, one of the first things you had to do was till it. So you had to run a till, and churn up the earth to aerate it, and then you could actually plant stuff in it. I hate this. It's fucking stupid. Like, why should I have to buy a machine to do this when there's already so many wonderful options to do this for me? So the thing I learned from Gabe is that you can use various plants to do the tilling for you. So if you think about it, the daikon. If you think about, okay, so I'm gonna pull up a picture of a daikon because for those who don't know what a daikon is, they're amazing. This is a daikon. It is a gigantic fucking radish. And when I say gigantic, here is an 8-inch chef knife for scale. It's huge. So what Gabe has done, and this is like a known thing, is you just coat your whole lawn in daikon seed. And so what the daikon will do is it'll punch through the very hard ground and start growing this tuber. It starts growing this tuber, and then it dies. And so what this has done is it's essentially trapped nutrients in these little pockets whilst also dying, so it becomes mushy and soft, and then dies back. And so it's essentially aerated all of the soil, added nutrients to the soil,
and ground cover,
and it's ground cover. Like you get this like beautiful greens on the top. And you can eat them. So like you can eat your lawn, it aerates it for you, and then the next year you can just like plant stuff on it, and like it's just amazing.
Yes, it will grow in Belgium.
Yeah, it'll grow anywhere. Daikon don't give a fuck. Daikon are from Japan.
No,
they don't give a shit.
Yeah, we got 2 feet of snow this year. My daikon grew through the 2 feet of snow. They were like, whatever.
Yeah, like, um, so yeah, daikon, super dope. I'm a big fan of no-till gardening, and I realize this might not be what people picture as like sci-fi, but again, I want that solar punk future. This is my idea of sci-fi. I want everyone's lawn to be food. I want all the buildings covered in plants.
I mean, there's science involved.
Right?
And it's fiction in as much as this is not how we do things now.
Yeah. Like the way we do things now is mostly oppressive lawns. So it's like if we had some and here's a radish spirit just for your enjoyment.
Yes. Show me a radish spirit.
This for those of you who don't know, this is the radish spirit. This is from a fantastic movie called Spirited Away from a fantastic studio called Studio Ghibli. Highly recommend checking it out and all of their videos because they're fantastic. Anyways, back to daikon. Sorry, I knew as soon as I looked up daikon, radish spirit was going to come up, and I had to click it.
Yeah. For people who are asking questions about, like, how do I plant it? Will it grow here? Will it grow here? Will it grow here? I have a classic suburbia backyard. I got 2 pounds of daikon seeds for like $10, and then I just took handfuls of those and I just yeeted them all over the backyard. And then I ignored it. Because I'm lazy.
Dude, I
don't want to have to
I'm a big fan of this.
Like,
I love lazy gardening. It's so fun. I like.
And then you just walk out, and all of a sudden there's like, oh, hello, little sprout. What are you doing there? You like pull it out, and there's like, little daikon, baby. Oh, cool. Good job, guys. Way to do the thing that plants do. I always find it very interesting that we've put so much effort into making plants when plants have actually already put in all the effort into making plants. Why the fuck are we putting in the effort to making plants? Yeah. Why do the job twice?
Like, plants are really good at growing in places. So
I actually did throw it from sitting, and I was sitting on a stump.
Yeah. Yeah. So then somebody asked, what do you do with all the daikon? I mean, you can eat it, or you can just do nothing and let it die, and then it, like, just becomes
compost.
Then it's compost. It's compost in the ground. It's like it's built-in compost. It's already done the job.
But also, I mean, you're gonna get a bunch of daikon, so you can use it in salads. You can use the daikon roots just for delicious doms, and then you can do fermentation.
Yes. Another option is if you're take
all of those like highbrow science stuff and mash it up with that permaculture hippie bullshit and make them make friends.
No, so another great option is you can use things that you normally wouldn't think of as ground cover. So like pea plants, for example, or beans can be done as ground cover. And what's really great about this is if you're doing like a mix of like daikon and beans as ground cover, like you are making fucking awesome soil. Like, you are pumping the nitrogen into that soil and also aerating it and making all that, like, sinking the carbon in there. And so the next year, I mean, you're going to get this wonderful harvest of daikon and beans. But then the next year when you go to grow something, you're going to get fucking awesome plants because you've already prepped the ground to be perfect, essentially. And if you're putting down, like, layers of dead hay or mulch or all this kind of stuff, and, like, you make awesome ground and awesome plants, and then you can like live that pseudo semi self-sufficient life at no effort to you whilst also going about your normal sci-fi stuff. Like, you got to figure that Gabe like is doing all this permaculture stuff, and then once he fucks with his plants for like 10-20 minutes a day, and then he comes inside and does like mammalian cell culture. Like, this is the solar punk future that I want. I want to be able to come inside.
I just grew cancer today.
Yeah, right? Like,
I did actually.
Yeah, he's working on some cancer cell lines right now. But like, I want to be able to like come in and do my like synthetic biology shit and then go outside and tend my plants. Like, that is the future that I want personally, and like I think that's the future that we all kind of deserve, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, what is the fucking point? Like, what's the point? Like, this is, I think, something that a lot of people are struggling with. It's like, what is actually the point of life and living? And like, because people, you work all day so you can come home and eat, but then what? It's like, okay, so you've spent 60 years working a retail job. now what? What did you actually, like, what do you want out of life? And I think this is one of the wonderful things. I mean, not to say the plague is wonderful. It's fucking not. It's awful. But the one good thing about the plague is that it has radically altered people's life goals and also visions of what their future looks like. So, like, the number of people I know who, I mean, admittedly, a lot of people are getting absolutely fisted by the pandemic, and that is awful. And it breaks my heart, and it's terrifying, and I get all that shit. But what I've loved seeing is the people who've been like, well, fuck, everything's on fire, and I have nothing better to do. I'm gonna take up embroidery, or like tie-dye.
The number of people that are
baking.
Suddenly excited about sourdough.
Oh my god, it is ridiculous. Like, everyone's like, I've made my own sourdough starter. I'm like, yeah, you and everyone else. Like,
yeah,
I made a video on this because and it was so topical.
They gave them names.
I'd like to see your best sourdough starter names in the comments, please. Let's get that.
I want to see sourdough starter names. I actually named mine Beatrice.
So I'm actually about to start a new sourdough using genetically modified yeast, which I'm so fucking excited about.
Oh my god, are you using the spider silk yeast?
No, the keratin yeast.
The keratin, yes.
So it's gonna be yellow.
We're gonna get like orange.
I'm waiting. Okay, so I'm waiting on. I've showed this before, but I'm gonna show it again, because this is the cyberpunk or solarpunk future that I want. Where is the specific picture that I'm thinking of? Come on. It should be here. Damn you, Google. Oh, it's right. No, it is. Oh, shit. No. Oh god, I broke it. Okay, this is what I want. Okay, so this is the yeast that I have. This isn't my specific plate, but this is the same thing. So I currently have this one, which is, you can see, is vibrant yellow. So you've got to compare this, and this is a better picture, so you can kind of see you can see the difference between a normal yeast colony just looks white, like it doesn't have any color. Compare that to this, which is vibrant yellow, and this is something that I'm waiting from Gabe. He put the order in for me. So I'm gonna have these two different variants of yeast. What?
It's not my fault.
Yeah, no, fuck FedEx. But anyway.
Well, yeah, except everything else is just as bad right now.
Yeah, I know, it's all fucked. Anyway, so I have these two different kinds of yeast, so I'm gonna be making a sourdough out of these two. So I'm hoping to end up with, like, orange sourdough. That's gonna be just, like, chock full of keratin. Because, I mean, admittedly, getting vitamin A, like, if you eat any vegetables, you're getting your vitamin A for the day. But there's some people I know who basically survive on ramen and Mountain Dew. So, considering that they also occasionally eat bread, this is a really interesting way of getting vitamin A into your diet without having to eat vegetables like a functioning ass adult. So this is something I'm working on. I tried to make a keratin wine, but apparently keratin is hilariously insoluble in alcohol and water. Like, it crashes out really hard.
Wait.
So it does not dissolve.
Wait, so what if you use koji?
What? What do you mean?
A what? Sorry. No, so think about it this way. So you have this chemical, in the same way that, like, rice, you can't just take rice and smack some yeast onto it and put it in water and turn it into wine, right?
Right.
You need the rice to be broken down into its constituent pieces, and so this is the reason that koji exists. This is why they have so many awesome Japanese and Asian style ferments, is because you have that koji, aspergillus, and you use it to break down the. Yeah, and they bred it over, like, what, 10,000 years or something to be white, so that you know that you don't have contamination, because all the rest of the aspergillus are not your friend.
Yeah, most aspergillus are not friendly.
And so what you do is you use that to break down the rice, and then the yeast break down the byproducts. And so if you go through this stepwise process, you can actually take something that isn't very soluble or doesn't break down, and you can break it down with a very specific enzymatic process. And koji is almost always the answer. Like, for building things, chitosan is the answer. For breaking things down, koji is the answer.
Yep.
Yeah, so you should look into that, dude.
Like, I mean, it might break the keratin down into vitamin A. That could be interesting, but I don't know. It's not going to make it more soluble. Like, I wanted it. I just wanted the wine because I wanted like vibrant orange wine. I didn't really want it for and because everybody likes beer. I mean, I don't, but like theoretically, everybody likes alcohol. In theory, I don't, but that's not the point. But so many people around the world drink it that if you could, I feel like it's easier to convince people to embrace synthetic biology in beer than it is to embrace synthetic biology in plants. Because everybody gets fucking weird about plants. Because there's this long history of companies being dickholes and doing the most boring plant biology ever.
True story.
Whereas beer, I mean, you sell it as like a...
It is synthetic biology, though.
It is.
If everybody... Jesus. Have you seen the amount of wine yeasts there are?
Like, so many. And, like, there'll be grad students who'll spend their whole career breeding a fucking version of Saccharomyces that's just right and produces things just the way they like. And I'm like, that's fucking genetic engineering. It's like, why... Like, anytime somebody doesn't, like, says they're, like, against GMOs, I'm like, why do you hate puppies? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Also, like, my favorite is when like the hippies are like, we need to go back to nature and eat more vegetables. I'm like, bitch, every fucking vegetable you've ever eaten is just as man-made as a Pop-Tart. Like, actually, I'm gonna pull this up. I'm gonna like
do you want to explain while you're doing that, I'm gonna explain the why do you hate puppies thing.
Do it.
So I get really frustrated with people that talk about their issues with GMOs. And so I have a very abrasive personality.
To the surprise of nobody.
Nobody is surprised. And so at some point I'm like, yeah, we should definitely go back to the way that we used to genetically modify dogs, which is forcing them to fuck and then taking all the ones that we don't want and putting them in a bag with rocks and throwing them in a river. Why do you hate puppies?
Okay, so here's the graphic that I was thinking of. So like wild watermelon was like 90% rind, like it was almost inedible.
Seeds,
and
big
seeds.
chonker seeds.
Yes, wild bananas are like 90% seeds. Like wild eggplant was this tiny little useless gross thing. Wild carrots were basically poison. Wild corn was like trying to eat rocks. Whereas, like, the modern equivalent have been so heavily modified for our consumption that they do not resemble in the slightest their natural varieties. And so, like, when everyone's like, we need to go back to nature and eat wild foods, they're like, bitch, we made those over 10,000 years. Here's another example. Brassica related. Let's see if that comes up. Okay, so here's all plants that are the same plant, right? These are Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, kohlrabi, bok choy, mustard, are all the same plant. They're not different species. They're just different. They're just weird mutants of the same plant. And so like each thing has been selected for different things. So broccoli is the flower buds. Cauliflower is also the flower buds, but in two different flavors. Kohlrabi is selecting for the stem. Kale is for the leaves. Cabbage is for the terminal leaf buds. And Brussels sprouts are lateral leaf buds. It's all the same fucking plant. Like, it's not a different species. It's all just Brassica. Brassica or Laraceae. Like, same fucking plant. So, like... It's a thing. So whenever someone's like, we need to eat more vegetables, just eat your broccoli, it's good for you, it's natural. The fuck are you on? It took 10,000 years to make that. Like, a fucking Pop-Tart is less processed. Like...
Doritos. Doritos are a perfect example of this, actually. If you look on the back of a bag of Doritos, that's like almost 100%. It's just dehydrated.
It's just food. It's
like
normal. It's normal ingredients.
Yeah, it's just food. It's normal. It's like, it's cheese, it's tomatoes, it's onions. And it's like, if I made you a plate of nachos, you'd be like, yeah, I'm going to eat some nachos. All they did was take all the ingredients of nachos and they dehydrated it and they turned it into a powder. Learn how to read your bags.
Yeah, whole corn,
Anywho.
vegetable oil, soybeans, milk extract, cheddar cheese, salt, whey, which is just fucking milk, buttermilk solids, cheese, whey protein concentrate, onion powder, soybean, cotton. Like, it's all food. Tomato powder, spices, lactic acid. These are all food. This is like... But, like, you give it a funny name and people lose their fucking minds.
Yeah. So, let's go to the comments, people. I think we've been going for a while here, so let's wrap it up. Who's got some thoughts, feelings, ideas?
Okay, what else we got? Why did humans... I mean, almonds. Almonds are such a good example of... There's absolutely no fucking reason...
What's the whole question? I don't even know what you just read.
No, so it was like, why did humans even choose to modify these borderline inedible plants in the first place? Because we had time.
We don't want to die.
And almonds are such a great example of this. Almonds naturally are super toxic. Like, you will die. Like, so the smell of almonds is not almond scent. What you're smelling is cyanide. Like, that's what that smell is. Smell of almonds. No, bitch, you're smelling cyanide. Like, so not only so that's a thing. So we've essentially bred almond trees to be not dangerous. So, like, it's just the way humans do.
Avocados. Avocados. Yeah, if the Mayans didn't just love the fuck out of avocados after the giant sloths died off, they would have totally gone extinct. But, they just kept going. Yep. And yes, selective breeding is a term that we use in genetic modification in as much as that we call it directed evolution.
Yep.
And it's something that happens in laboratories all the time. Yep. Sorry, I just saw somebody talking about breeding, and they're like, breeding is different than GMOs. And I'm like,
no, it isn't.
Not in the laboratory, it isn't.
And we've also talked about nuclear gardening and mutagens, and there's all kinds of things that don't count as GMO, but are way worse than what we would do in a lab. So, like, a nuclear garden, for example, is you literally just irradiate...
The atomic garden.
Yeah, the atomic garden or nuclear garden is you just irradiate the shit out of your plants until they mutate really hard and make weird properties that you're interested in, and then you backbreed that into your growing stock. And, like, this is changing thousands of genes at a time. Doesn't count as GMO. You can also use mutagens. You can use chemical mutagens and just mutate the fuck out of your plants and then breed them back into the main stock. You've changed 1,000 genes. God knows what any of them do, but that's not GMO. Whereas I change one gene or I add one gene to a plant and everybody shits the bed. It's like, what the fuck? Like, that makes any sense.
All right.
Actually, this is a really... Somebody just mentioned this, and this is really important. The next stream... it's going to be on Saturday, not on Friday, is going to be with my friend Kevin. And Kevin runs a company that has engineered yeast to produce THC. So we're going to be hanging out with him. We're going to be chatting with him, talking about his company, talking about the stuff that he's done. For legal reasons, we won't be able to, like, show his plasmids or whatever, but, like, we're still going to be able to talk about the pathway and some of the challenges that he's had to go through. And so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. You're definitely going to want to tune into that. Anyways, that was just a
And for all the people that are throwing in chemical names, yes, it's the aldehyde.
Yes.
It's the aldehyde smell. That's what aldehyde smells like.
Yep.
But it's definitely linked also with the things that want to kill you.
Yeah. It's
for all the people that have asked about talking about developing permaculture stuff, talking about starting your own garden, talking about doing some of the stuff that we've been talking about in this, I'm just going to have to pull Justin aside, and we're going to have to start a whole new project to talk about this. So
are we just doing like a regular like stream talking about permaculture?
We're doing a permaculture stream next time. We're just going to do it. We're going to be like, hey, it's time to learn how to touch a plant.
Yeah, next Biohack Chat, we're just gonna stick to permaculture. It's just gonna be we're just gonna do a whole permaculture stream. And we might even do this.
Alternatively,
might do a couple times.
Alternatively, we could just throw together a blog post. This is why we're going to talk independently. Moving on. Chats.
Anyways.
No, I don't have a channel. I don't care.
Yeah. Okay, what else we got? Can we make the Ent project? Oh, it says, can we make the Ents project, and why does Sci-House not reply to emails? Because we're busy. Yeah, it's hard.
There's just one of me.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but Gabe is ridiculously busy. Like, the fact that I managed to get some time to do this is a rarity. Like, so don't feel bad. He doesn't answer my emails.
I'm really
Like,
sorry. I don't even answer his text messages for days.
I know him, and it takes a week to get a response out of him. So like, don't feel bad that you're not getting an email. Shit happens.
I'm working. So, Sci-House is alone. It's just me doing every single thing. So I'm working on the herpes project, the cancer project, the ENDS project, oh my gosh, what else? There's like 6 other things. I have a list. It's written on a mirror somewhere. Also gardening and taking care of a house and
the cats.
And taking care of the cats.
Yeah.
So
how many cats
I'm
are you
really
at now?
sorry.
4? 4? He's got 4 cats who frankly take more attention than your emails. Sorry, but not sorry. It's just the way it is. Yeah. Yeah, he's just trying to vibe in his daikon yard. Accurate?
It's true. I am trying to vibe in my daikon yard.
Yeah.
I routinely say, you know what? Fuck all of this biohacking, trying to build a community culture structure bullshit. Maybe I'm just going to go grow a goddamn tomato.
Yep. Also, I showed that picture of the radish spirit. Meet the actual radish spirit. Like, this is just how it is.
I am Totoro. Nice to meet you.
It says, tell us about the cancer project. Do you want to give him the 3-second version of the cancer project?
Cool. Yeah. Somebody has...
Do you want pictures?
Yeah, NF2.
Okay, please don't be gross.
Oh
God, it's okay.
It's cancer. It's not going to not be gross.
No,
okay?
no, I wanted it on an MRI. Okay.
So we're working on trying to find a way to basically create a what's the best way to put this? A positive infection that mitigates the activities of the cancer, that makes it so that it doesn't damage the person.
Okay, the proper term for this is he's working on what's called an oncolytic virus. So basically, it's a virus that only infects cancer, because cancer is broken in just the right way that lets the virus replicate.
The virus thinks it's not you.
So it's like a virus that's normally in rabbits, and in this case, it thinks that cancer is rabbit, and it just breeds like a mofo. And so it kills the cancer, is the idea. There's lots of studies on this, and so he's trying to replicate it. He's working on this type of cancer. It's a brain cancer, which is very close to my heart because I've lost some people to brain cancer, and it's the fucking worst. And so yeah, he's working on some stuff to see if he can kill brain cancer, because brain cancer is a bastard. Yeah, that's the 3-second version of the cancer project. Moving on.
Yeah.
Also, we had a couple more donations, and I just want to say thank you to all those people, because like really your donations are what allow me to both do things like build a computer so that I can make better videos for you, but also so I can do things like eat, which I've been told is important. But anyways, so yeah, I gotta like just scroll up to find it, because it was it was Bjorn Kemetz. Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed the streams. Also, Nico kicked in. Thank you as always. You are dope.
Nico?
Yeah.
Hi, Nico.
Yeah, Nico Schluter. He is dope. Big supporter of the show. Fantastic. What else we got? Oh, have you heard from the synthesis company about the egg and milk thing?
Yeah. Didn't I send you the quote?
Yeah, you sent me the quote, but has there been any updates?
Yes. You give the monies, and then they build the things.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, we'll deal with this after. Anyway. Okie dokie. Oh, actually, so somebody asked to regrowing teeth. Should we tell them about Tide Glycib?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the hardest freaking compound to pronounce. It's called Tide Glycib. It sounds like somebody like poked you in the ribs as you were trying to say like Tide Pods. Um, it's this thing. It's this real weird compound, and they've used it to like legitimately regrow teeth. Like if you've had like a cracked tooth, like it's actually induced repair of the teeth, and it can grow induce the growth of like entirely new teeth, which is very weird. But
yeah, they actually took living animals. Okay, so anybody who's squeamish, sorry, but they took living animals and they drilled holes in their teeth, and then they took this chemical and they swabbed it around the hole, and the teeth grew back.
Yep.
They didn't even grow back weird. They didn't grow back with like lumps or spines or anything. They were just like regenerated. It was very cool.
Yep. Super, super, super cool. But yeah, so that's Tide Glycib. It's also neat. It also can do like liver repair and a bunch of other things.
It doesn't just work on teeth.
Yeah,
it works on all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it also
Gene Drive doesn't work. It's scary, and then it also is bullshit.
I mean, it kind of.
I was terrified of it.
Like it
except
worked,
when it doesn't.
It worked in the mosquitoes.
And then it came back. They bred it out. No, they bred it out.
Kind of. There were different papers that showed different results. But yeah, the one problem with Tide Glycib is it has been known to have some adverse reactions. But yeah, it got to phase 2 trials and then it was discontinued because of large quantities of adverse reactions.
The word that looks both backwards and backwards, no matter how you look at it.
What?
It sounds like it's backwards, but also if you read it backwards, it doesn't sound any better. This looks shit.
Yeah, it really does. It's Zatanna from the DC universe, how she like does magic by saying words backwards. It sounds like you're trying to summon a pony or something. Like it sounds broken. But yeah, so that's a thing. Okay, let's get like one or two more questions or ideas, and then we're gonna call it for the day because we've been going.
Let's wrap it up.
All right, what else we got? What do you guys dream of in your in your solar punk future? What do you want to see in
What have we been doing for the last 2 hours?
No, I know. I'm just maybe they've got other ideas.
Yeah. Okay, so the luminescent tree concept. So I've seen multiple people talking about the luminescent trees. And there's just this is the equal and opposite to human photosynthesis. The metabolic pathways just don't work like that, and if you try to crank them up to the point where you can get enough light to even,
I mean, in plants it works. The new fungal system works really, really well.
Right, but we're not. Yes.
You're not going to fucking read...
giant mushroom trees? Are we talking about giant mushroom trees now, Justin?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the system that me and Andreas are working on. So this is the only luminescent plant thing that will probably ever work. Because it uses a fraction of the number of enzymes. It uses the...
Got my skepticals on.
Okay, well, it works, and there's a company that's actually like mass producing these plants now because it works so well. It uses a feedstock that is native to the plants. Like, it uses the caffeic acid pathway, which is part of the lignin pathway, which means plants are making it in enormous quantities. It is variable based on the circadian rhythm of the plants, and also it concentrates in the flowers. So you have way higher activity of this in the flowers, so they get really, really bright, whereas the rest of the plants don't. It shows absolutely no metabolic inhibition of the plants. The plants grow just fine. It's extremely bright for a glowing plant. It's still not enough that you're going to read next to it, but...
Exactly. That's
like
what I was getting to.
But if you had a whole forest of this and you were in, like, it's on a new moon when it's dark, the whole thing would look like it's glowing. In the same way that, like, the original mushroom this comes from...
That's not making street lamps. That's just and your fetish for glowing plants.
Hey, well, fuck you. I like glowing plants. And look, I never said it would be street lamps. It'll never be street lamps. You're never going to read
that's where I was going.
You're never, ever going to read next to one of these plants. It's not going to fucking happen. But a glowing forest, which you could probably see from space, fuck yes, is totally, like, something that you could make the forest be noticeably glowing, totally possible.
Yes. Something where...
Possible, doable, real, it already exists, and it is coming to market, and it's going to be available in stores, which I think is fucking wild. But it's never going to be that you're going to fucking, like, it's not going to be a street lamp. That's not how this works. However, there have been lots of studies that show that street lamps are fucking useless, so if we wanted to replace all of the, or not replace, but if we wanted to add glowy to the trees that are just lining the streets, and that's, like, the amount of light that you get, I'm down. Like, that would be great. Like, it'd be super easy to filter out from telescopes, so we'd have way lower light pollution.
This also has to do... Yeah, this has to do more about the... So, like, the cross-communication here is about the cultural change that needs to happen.
Yeah.
In as much as that, like, we just like to shoot light at everything.
Yes. For no reason. Like most streetlights are fucking useless. Like, there's been lots of studies. They don't stop crime. They don't stop shit. They barely stop accidents because we strap
There's a street light in my backyard.
Yeah, that's super weird. But also,
luckily some person, not me, made sure that it didn't work anymore. So that was really useful.
Yeah, it died. But, so street lamps are useless. Like, they're not even helpful for stopping accidents because we strap lights to cars. Like, they come with lights. Why do they need more lights? So yeah, it's fucking useless. But if we had, like, I would totally trade all of our street lights for glowing trees because the light level would be way down. And, like... Yeah. That sounds great. You still get, like, pretty decorative lighting without it being an eyesore and bleeding into everything else.
It's just aesthetics.
All things is aesthetic. Like... Aesthetic. It is the way of the world, man.
I don't know if functional is an aesthetic. Okay, we're nerding out here.
Dude, solar punk is an aesthetic. Fuck off. It's like
solar punk is an aesthetic because they made it as an aesthetic.
Right.
It's original.
So
but it's actually also, you can just step away from the aesthetic and you can actually take your aesthetic and you can turn it into something useful. And so genetic engineering and biohacking and biomimicry are all aesthetics if you're an art nerd. But you can take that thing and you can take the elements out of it, just like solar punk. There are some things in solar punk where it's just like, there are no dragons. Yes. I am sorry, you will not get your Pokemon.
Yes.
And you can step outside of that and you can be like, the tools and the technology that they talk about move beyond aesthetic and into functionality, and that is where I want to live.
Yeah, I mean, that thing. I mean, like, the glowing, the reason I like the glowing plant thing, other than I just want avatar plants, is because it's such a clear example of, like, biological engineering working and doing something that is basically magic. Like, like, everyone's making your fucking, like, banana E. coli or your GFP beer or whatever. Those are cute, but they don't inspire in the same way that a glowing plant would. Like, a glowing plant is fucking magic. It's like, there is no thing on Earth that does this. And it, like...
Except for all the other glowing plants.
No plant glows. No plant glows. There is not a single glowing plant on Earth. It does not exist.
Okay, except for all the fungus that glows and the animals that glow. All of the other shit.
Since when is a fungus a plant? Last I checked, those are different things.
Right, so it's very important that you have a glowing apple tree.
I'm sorry, you say this like it's a bad thing. That sounds awesome. Like, I can pick
moving on to the comments. We were trying to wrap this up.
Hey, somebody asked about glowing plants, so we fucking talked about glowing plants.
Because somebody always asks about glowing plants.
And this is the hill I choose to die on.
It is. And I'm going to find your body and turn it into terra preta and use it for my garden.
Only if you cover it in glowing plants, you bastard. Okay.
I've seen, maybe it's the same person, biomaterial clothing. Yeah.
Yes?
What like,
what kind?
I also like cotton.
Yeah, I was going to say, everyone's
it's
like,
a biomaterial.
let's make biomaterial clothing.
What about rayon? Rayon's also a biomaterial.
Cotton and rayon.
Cotton. Wool. Oh my god. So you can get sheep.
Yeah, you take this animal that just
and then
grows
feed
covered
it grass.
I fucking love this shit when everyone's like, let's use kombucha. I'm like, what's wrong with a sheep? We bred them to be extra fluffy.
Grass.
And when you're done with them, you can eat them. Like
fabric.
Right? It sheds fabric, and then you can eat them, and it's delicious.
Turn it into.
Yeah.
But yes, I also like kombucha leather and all that other stuff.
Dude, silk.
It's very cool.
The Chinese have been doing biomaterials for like 4,000 years.
Have we forgotten what bio means? Right? Oh my god, okay, we've forgotten what bio means.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Like, it's imagine a plant and you can eat it. It makes you clothing and then also dinner.
Mutton. All right. Okay, so we're kind of just bouncing all over. Yes, you are a biomaterial. Okay, so I think we should probably wrap it up because now we're just getting into magical ramble area.
I regret nothing.
Been very good, actually.
This has been fun. Okay, so yeah, let's get into the wrap up. So yeah, thanks for everybody who's kicked in a couple of bucks. Goes a long way to getting a new editing computer, which is going to be making my life just so much fucking easier. Again, the next stream will be on Saturday. I'll post the exact. It's not going to be at 2. It's going to be a little later. I think around 4ish. But I'll post all the exact times on Twitter. Which means I'm going to open Twitter, post it, and then immediately leave because spending any amount of time on Twitter these days makes me want to just light my entire fucking laptop on fire. So yeah. That's going to be coming on the weekend. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be hanging out with my buddy who does THC yeast, who's ready for a demonetized stream. It's going to be fun. If you want to see any of Gabe's stuff, the little amount of social mediaing he does, I've posted some links in the description below. And if you want to see any of my stuff, links are down there below. If you haven't already, I've posted a new video on my second channel, which you should absolutely go check out. The channel is called The Taste Emporium. Thank you, Bjorn. Thanks for kicking in. Greatly appreciated. Yeah, so new video on The Taste Emporium. Highly recommend checking that out. It's extremely pretty. There'll be a new video, hopefully on this channel later this month. We'll see. Fingers crossed. I don't know if there's anything else that we need to cover, so if that being the case, I'm going to wrap it up for the day. Thank you very much for coming and hanging out. This has been a lot of fun. I've set this to just my camera at this point, so you can't see Gabe waving wildly, doing his best wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man impression. But anyway, thanks for everybody coming and hanging out. Next stream will be Saturday, then there should be another one on Monday, unless we are forgetful again and things happen. But yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you next time.